So we are going to look at the properties of the parabolas. Okay, so a parabola, it's a graph that has a unique shape. It's either an open up or an open down symmetrical shape. Okay, so if you look here, you see that what I have here is I have an open up, right, where it looks like a U, right, where you have a lowest point here. So this would be your lowest point, right? And then it's symmetrical because if I actually draw a line here, or if I cut this parabola and I fold it on top of each other, they're gonna overlap. Okay, that's why it's called symmetrical. Okay, it's like if you have, let's say, a butterfly, right? And then if you draw a symmetry line in the middle, they're gonna overlap. So a parabola is a graph, special graph. It's a special type of graph for quadratic functions. Okay, we talked about how to factor and how to expand quadratic functions in the previous unit. Okay, remember that quadratic is when I have an equation with a degree 2. Okay, so an equation with the highest degree is a degree 2 is called a quadratic function. We talked about linear function, and we said linear function has a degree 1, right, with an equation of something x plus something. We talked about that before, right? Now we're going to move to quadratic, which have a degree of 2. Okay, we also looked at quadratic that would have where you have this, let's say, right? That's another example of quadratic, right? Where you had it in the factored form. Okay, so these are different ways that I can write quadratic functions. Now we're going to look at the features of the parabola. So the name of the graph is called a parabola. Okay, we're going to look at the features of the parabola, and then later on in grade 11 we learn how to actually take the equation and graph the parabola. Okay, so right now we're going to learn about the different features of these parabolas. So first thing that we're going to learn, so our goal is to recognize the direction of opening of the parabola. Is it opening up? Is it opening down? When would it open up? When would it open down? What makes the difference? We're going to look at the values of the max or the min. We're going to recognize the value of the x and the y intercept, recognize the coordinates of the vertex, and we're going to state the equation of the axis of symmetry. So all of these things we're going to learn in this lesson. Okay? First thing that we're going to look at is if the graph is like a valley, right? We call it's opening up, right? It's like a cup. It's opening up. And then this parabola here looks like a hill opening down. Okay? So you're going to look at the graph. Does it open up or does it open down? You're going to have to be able to identify these two. Are you guys okay with the direction of opening? Now, if you look at this right here, which is the open up, can you tell me if it has a max or if it has a minimum value? It has a minimum, right? So if you look at this right here, right, this is a minimum point, right? These graphs, they will never end. They can keep increasing. It will never end. There is no end for it. That's why we usually put an arrow at the end of the parabola, okay? That means it's going to keep going. It's not going to end, okay? Now, if it opens up, that means it has a minimum. If it opens down, it has a maximum value. Are you okay with that? So far, probably the easiest thing we learned. What? Oh. Now, state whether the following parabola opens up or down, and does it have a max or a min? It has a max. Now, which way does it open? Open down. And it has a max. Okay? Now, can you tell me what is the value of that max? I think that's a 4. The x value is 4. Just 1 second. This point right here, right? I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And then that's 2. Okay? So what's my point here? 4, 5. Okay? So the maximum point, if I'm looking at just the maximum, right? If I'm looking only for the value of the maximum, I'm going to say y equals 2 because I'm looking for the y value. Okay? So the value of the max is y equal 2. You see how I write y equal 2? I should be very specific. It's y. Are we okay with that? Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this clearly, but let's look at what's the maximum or minimum value of the following. So if I'm looking at this one, I think that's 3 right here, and that's 1. Okay, what would be, is it a max or a min, and what would it be? So y equals 4. And is it a max or a min? Sorry? It's a min. Okay, let's look at this one. Max or a min? Max. And then it's at y equals 2. Max or a min? And it is -3, yeah. Right, because it's in the negative y values, yeah? No, that's a negative. And then this is a max or a min? Y equals -4. Yeah. Are we good? Okay. Now, the general word for that maximum point or minimum point is called the vertex. Okay? The vertex is actually the name of the whole point. It's not only the y value of it. Okay? So we call that point the vertex. Okay? And then when they're asking you for the vertex, they're looking for both the x and the y value because it's called a point. Okay? So if I'm looking at this one and I'm either asking you what's the value of the vertex, I'm going to have to look for the x value. And for the y value, I'm going to have to state it as 1, 2 in brackets. Okay? So, so what are the coordinates of the vertex for the parabola given below? So the question is, what are the coordinates of the vertex? So the question is very clear. It wants the vertex point. So what do you say the coordinates are? It will be 7. Yep. And you said -4. So the vertex is 7, -4. You'll see that most of what we're going to look at, they relate to the vertex, okay? Most of the values that we're looking at. Now, if I'm going to ask you to draw a line to cut this parabola in half, where would you draw it? Right in the middle, right? Right in the middle, it passes through what point? It passes through the value 7. What point does it pass through on the, what do we call that point? The vertex, right? It passes through the vertex, yes? So if I'm going to come and draw an axis of symmetry right here, right? It's an imaginary line. So I'm going to draw this line where it goes down like this, right? And it cuts it in half. It's going to pass through the vertex, okay? But you said that it passes through the value. Through what value, though, did it pass through? Through what value did it pass through? Through 7, yeah? So because it passed through 7, right, it's an x value, yes? If you look back at the vertex, I had 7 and -4. 7 is the x value of the vertex, -4 is the y value of the vertex, yes? So you see how it passes through the 7 here, right? So that means the axis of symmetry, it's a line that passes through the x value of the vertex, okay? So when I want to write the axis of symmetry, I say axis of symmetry is x equals 7. Okay? So now, let's put it all together for a second, okay, before I give you time to copy this. Okay? If you look at the vertex point, which is 7 and -4, okay? This part of the vertex is your axis of symmetry. What do we call this part? It's the max or min. So the vertex gives you two things. The vertex gives you the axis of symmetry, and it gives you the max or the minimum value, which we call the optimal value. So we don't have to say both words, max and min. Okay? So this part is the axis of symmetry, but also this part is your max or min, which another word for it is optimal. Remember, we use the letter y equals -4.